Hello everyone, welcome back to another KSP1 video. Yes, as you might have seen in my community post recently, I am not able to play KSP2 because my PC is not the best. So, today I will be doing a Mercury program recreation in KSP1. We've created a new save called Nova Space Industries that'll recreate fabled Mercury program. And it'll also recreate the Gemini and Apollo program as well. So, we're just going to be setting up the game settings here, and we could start this save. This is a sandbox save, because we can't really recreate stuff that well if we're in a science mode save, so, or a career mode save, you could differ. So, right now we're building the Mercury capsule that'll launch on the Little Joe 2, which was a testbed rocket to test the Mercury abort system. Little Joe 2? I mean the Little Joe 1. The Little Joe 2 was used for the Apollo program, while the Little Joe 1 was used for the Mercury program. So the abort tower is fairly hard to recreate without mods, considering that the actual abort towers in this game is way too large for the Mark 1 capsules. So yeah, we're going to be adding a solid rocket booster there, we're going to add some fins, and yeah, this is basically a very simple rocket to build. And we're going to configure the staging correctly. Always configure staging. We're going to set up the abort action group. Put Jebediah on here. We're actually going to dab at NASA because their Little Joe flight had nothing in there. But this one, it has crew. We got Jebediah on the helm flying this rocket. This footage is now real-time speed, while the build was 5 times faster than regular speed. So, this is real speed. This is not insanely fast, but it's still fast when we click that abort button. So we're just gonna start spinning to make it look like something's going wrong, and it's really hard to do that. And then I trigger the abort action group, and it's not really doing its job that well. The solid rocket booster is still more powerful than the actual abort system, so it kept shaking, and I just decided to decouple the abort tower, and then it just worked somehow. So, this might not be the most successful flight, but actually no, it was completely successful. We can forget that that ever happened, and this was a successful flight, and you cannot think otherwise, because any landing you can walk away from. And we're just gonna speed up the footage again, considering that this is basically like the slowest part of the mission, where we have to deploy the parachutes and time warp. Parachute designs, are they better than the ones in KSP2? Probably not. Got a nice look at the flag. Epic Photoshop job. Please don't say anything mean about it. It's based on the Norwegian flag, if you were wondering why it looks so Norwegian. But we're gonna save that as a crew capsule for the Mercury. And then we're gonna add the retro pack, which is what they use to deorbit the Mercury capsule from orbit. And now this totally not working. The Spider engines aren't strong enough, so we decided to add some Separatrons, solid rocket boosters, and they're more faithful to the actual one because they actually use solid rocket boosters and not other liquid fueled ones. So this is a bit more accurate, but I mean, you could barely tell the difference anyways. We're just gonna see the Reliant, that's way too powerful. Even the swivel has enough thrust to lift this thing off the ground. And now the fins. The fins on the Redstone are very difficult. As I forgot to mention, this is the Redstone rocket, which was the first suborbital test flight America ever created, but the might of the Soviet Union had already launched Yuri Gagarin into orbit, so we're gonna have to use something else as a benchmark for this, and it's basically gonna be the Redstone. So we're gonna put a decoupler on you. I wanted to recreate the launch pad because the launch pad of the Redstone just looks so cool, and I really thought that it would look really nice, so adding the flair of having a realistic launch pad. I mean, there are other videos recreating the Mercury program. Either they have very realistic craft but no launch pad, or they have not that realistic craft but yes, launch pad, or somewhere in between, like some other video that you might heard of. And here I just realized that I put the fins wrong. I think I just went to look it up on Google to see how it actually looked like. And yeah, it turns out those fins are placed the wrong way, so we're gonna do this, and we could put the arm a lot closer to the craft. And we could add just this little... I really have no idea what this is. It's just... I just looked up on Google Redstone Rocket Launchpad and just copied whatever it said. I'm just gonna put the action groups to toggle everything. I will change the action groups a little bit because the traverse rate of that hinge isn't really good enough to match the launch. And I liked it better having the arm retract first and then launching. So, yeah. We're just gonna create Alan Kerman as the very first Kerbal to go suborbital in Nova Space Industries. The Nova Space Corporation. I tell a lot. And yeah, we're gonna reconfigure the action group to have one action group that deploys the arm and then the other that actually does the launch sequence. So here we are at the launch pad. Got Alan Kerman at the helm. We're going to activate SAS because, I mean, I thought about flying this without SAS because that's what probably NASA would have done. But I just decided, I mean, let's just fly with SAS anyways because that's what a lot of players are used to at this point because, yeah, forever. And if you, sometimes I've seen that the staging bugs out. So just use the Kerbal Engineer and the staging window. Just take them all with a grain of salt in this video. And yeah, we're gonna have a nice camera tools shot idea. And I really think this is a good recreation. So we're gonna start the countdown. 11, 10, 9, 8. Oh, we're joined by NASA. 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, something exploded there. I bet that was just something useless, but it doesn't really matter. It was just something that doesn't matter anymore because that's the launch pad. And I mean, in KSP, you really have to damage the launch pad to get a rocket to work. And yeah, this is a standard suborbital flight that I bet a lot of players would do in like a career mode or a science mode save. And oh, wobbly rockets again. This is so annoying. Especially, I feel like in KSP1 that wobbly rocket shouldn't be a thing when the craft is like so small. Decided to auto strut everything for now. Hopefully KSP2 doesn't have noodle rockets, but I mean, I've seen videos by Matt Lown and Carnassa, and they say that noodle rockets still exist, unless you go into the game files and edit the joint rigidity. I'm still wondering why the devs decided to add noodle rockets into the game, because apparently they're kind of funny when you start playing KSP1, but when you play the sequel and stuff, it's just not funny anymore. Our first stage has run out of fuel, and yes, we've definitely exited the atmosphere by looking at our app options. We're going to deploy the abort system. We're going to deploy the Mercury capsule. And yeah, this looks... I would say this is quite faithful to Mercury. I mean, I think this is the best recreation of something I've made. Like, I've made a Skylab recreation before, link to which was up here. So you click and go watch my Skylab recreation. That one might actually look a little bit weirder because it doesn't have any graphical mods installed, and this one does. And also, here's me finicking, trying to... I couldn't see my staging, so I thought I'm just gonna have to use an action group. And, oh, shameless plug, remember to subscribe and like the video, it really helps me out surviving the algorithm. And I just found that I didn't click the show stage menu, which was very, I don't know why that reset. It didn't do that when we launched, so it must be some weird glitch. And it probably won't get fixed considering that KSP1 is now in its final form, but I am still using KSP 1.12.3 because that's the version that works on Mac, and I run a Mac. So, yeah. So that was our first flight, and now we're going to build the Atlas, which, boy oh boy, was very complicated. Because the Atlas, it's just very hard to create because it's 1.5 stages. So NASA weren't sure if they could actually stage rockets when this was built, and they decided to add a central sustainer engine to go for most of the flight, and then there'd be 2 side engines to provide some extra thrust so that it could fly well. And this is what I'm building here, the engine shroud, which is used to do this. And realism overall, you have done better. This is... feel like Realism Override did a bit of a better job. Also, a little thing here. I'm clipping fuel tanks, which is a cardinal sin to do in Kerbal Space Program, but all the volume combined of all those fuel tanks would be less than the volume of an actual 2.5 meter diameter fuel tank like I should have used. But yeah, and I also forgot to add 2 Werner engines on the side. I was rushing. I was trying to get this video out quite quickly, so I guess I just forgot to add the Werner engines. Let's just say that it's in our hearts. You just can't see it. Yep, I know. Wild concepts. You just can't see it. It's there. You just can't see it. It's completely fine. And yeah, here I was thinking, am I supposed to attach these to the shroud or not? And I just decided, nah, you just slap it right on there. It's perfect anyways. It's not gonna change. It's not gonna fundamentally break this rocket, right? So we're gonna create John Kerman as in lieu of the legendary John Glenn. We're just also gonna have to make the staging a little bit different, because apparently I accidentally attached the main engine to the structure part, and when I would decouple it, it would also decouple the main engine, which would mean that there's no means of propulsion. So yeah, I'm gonna have a nice camera tool shot ready. It's slowing down to real-time speed. And we're going to do a nice pan-around shot of the Atlas. I didn't recreate the launch pad because this was already a hard craft to fly anyways. Oh, we're joined by NASA. 9. We're ready to launch. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. Ignition. 2. 1. Launching. Woo!
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway.
So yeah, that was the John Glenn launch. It's just, while I was editing this video was when I realized that those Werner engines probably should have been added and that I forgot, but it's alright. I mean, it would probably make this a little bit more inefficient, considering having more engines when you already have a good enough thrust-to-weight ratio is bad. Yeah, and here again, I forgot to do auto strut, so there might be a little bit of wobbliness that you'll see. And as this is flying, it's just a general orbit flight. I wouldn't recommend this craft as a orbit testing vehicle, because I already have tutorials of that on this channel, which I'll put a link right here if I remember. Click it and see my orbital tutorial, which is also before I had graphical mods, so it might not look as good as this one, but I like to think that my tutorial was quite a nice video. And yeah, so on the subject of playing KSP2, like I was talking about earlier, I actually don't have the financial power to buy a new PC, so I took a poll and asked people if they'd be willing to support me on Patreon, and the general consensus was yes, people would like to see that. So 75% of people said, yes, I'd love to see it, I would definitely support you and stuff like that. So I will start a Patreon, which probably will be linked in the description below, and there's only going to be a few tiers at this point, one of them being like the PC helper tier, which I'm planning to get a little bit of an explosion there. Anyways, as I was saying, I'm planning to buy an Acer Predator Orion 7000. I mean, you guys might disagree. It's going to take a while to get the money through Patreon anyway, so if you guys have a better PC ideas for me to get once I have the financial power to get it, put that down in the comment section below. I would really appreciate that. So we've reached orbit, and the Atlas is now in orbit as well, so we've polluted space. Don't worry, I'll probably design an SSTO to go grab that anyway. And we're going to hear deorbiting the craft. We're going to decouple the retro pack. I tried to get another shot, but it didn't look that good, so here we are in re-entry. I'm using the mod Reentry Particles Renew to make those reentry effects look a bit better, but I think it's kind of over. You guys can choose if you want me to remove that mod or not, because it just doesn't look as... It makes it look better and more realistic, but I'm not sure that would make for good content considering that it literally blocks the entire craft. Anyways, here we are, splashing down. That concludes this video, and I hope you all enjoyed watching this video, and remember to like and subscribe, and ring the bell for more KSP content. Bye.